Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the EcoHitch Trailer Hitch Receiver here on our 2025 Mazda CX-30. If you own a Mazda CX-30, you probably know all too well that there's not really a lot of space, especially in the trunk here. So if you end up having a couple of buddies go with you on a trip, or maybe your family, you probably don't have enough room to bring all of your gear with you. So that's going to leave you with having to install a trailer hitch receiver, which EcoHitch has a great option for you today. This trailer hitch is going to come with a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening, so it's going to have that standardized spacing so that it's going to fit the majority of accessories out on the market. Now with this trailer hitch, we can either throw in a ball mount and then tow a small trailer, or we can throw in a cargo carrier or a bike rack, and typically those bike racks and cargo carriers are going to be able to fold up so that you can reduce your overall length. Now there's going to be a couple of measurements that are going to be super important because of that. The first one being that folded length. So what we want to do to figure out if we're going to have enough clearance so that we don't hit our fascia is to measure from the center of the hitch pin hole out to the furthest point on our fascia, which it looks like this is kind of the furthest point here. So we're right around 3.5, maybe 4 inches. So all we'd have to do is go and look at our accessory, go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the closest point when it's folded up, and make sure that we have enough clearance. Now the other part here is our ground height. So we want to make sure that when we hit a steep incline or decline, we're not going to be bottoming out and scraping the shank of our accessory. So for that, we'll measure from the ground up to the top of the inside of the receiver tube opening. And that's got me right around 12 5/8, which is well over what we want. We want to have a minimum of 12 inches so that we know we're not going to end up scraping. If we were below that 12 inches, that's where we have to start looking into some adapters so that we can kind of raise that height up just a bit more. Now, our trailer hitch itself is going to have a 2,500 pound gross towing weight capacity, which is going to be the capacity for pulling a trailer. And then we are also going to have a 375 pound tongue weight rating, which is going to be the downward force on the inside of our receiver tube. Now, just because the trailer hitch can handle that amount of weight does not mean that your vehicle can. So you definitely will want to make sure that you double check your owner's manual and figure out exactly what safe load limit is for your vehicle. One thing that's not going to come with your trailer hitch is going to be a hitch pin and clip. For this one, we're going to have a 5/8 hitch pin and clip that we'll need to pick up separately. I typically recommend picking up one that's going to be anti-rattle and locking, so that way whatever accessory we have back here isn't going to be rattling around making a bunch of noise or jostling any kind of cargo that we're hauling back here, and then locking so that way no one can take off with our equipment anytime we have to leave our vehicle. Now if we're going to be towing a trailer, we're also going to need to be able to hook up our safety chains. So one thing I like to check is just how well our tow loops actually function with the different styles of clevis. So with our S-hook, that one is obviously going to go on pretty easy. Usually you don't really have a problem with the S-hook, but the larger clevis style sometimes wants to bind up depending on how tight that loop is. Looks like no matter which way you do it on this one though, we are plenty good. We got plenty of clearance there, no bind ups happening. So we are all good with that. The other thing to look for would be to add on some 4-pole wiring at minimum. If your trailer also has brakes, you would also need to upgrade to a 7-way and then also install a brake controller so that way you could actuate the brakes and also send over all of your light signals so that way everyone else on the road knows exactly what your intentions are. Installation of this specific trailer hitch is super easy. You can definitely do this in under an hour, honestly. You don't really need a lift. We were up on a lift just to have better viewing angle for our camera here, but you can definitely do this on the ground. All you're doing is just dropping the exhaust and then just fish wiring a couple of bolts through. Honestly, fish wiring is probably going to be the hardest part, and even that only took me just a few minutes. So you can definitely do this at home, but if you're the person that you don't own a torque wrench and you don't feel like renting one or purchasing one, and you just don't feel like actually spending the time doing this and you want to just have somebody else handle all of that hassle for you, you can use our dealer locator and find a shop near you to get it professionally installed. Now if you want to do this yourself, stick around and I'll walk you through the process. Start off our install, we're going to be removing 2 push pin fasteners down here below. And then just behind it, we have 2 bolts. There's one on the other side, just a little bit further up. It's a little bit harder to see. And for those, we're going to be needing a 10mm socket and obviously an extension to get up there. Now on the passenger side, right where we took that screw out, there is a little clip that's holding this in place. If you kind of press in on it with your screwdriver, you can pry that out, get it off that lip, and then pop the whole support out of place. We'll set that aside. Both the passenger and driver side, we're gonna have two separate rubber exhaust hangers that we're gonna need to pop off. And what I like to do is just spray a little bit of lubricant on there. Help make these transition out a little bit easier. And I'm gonna spray both sides. And then from there, you could use a pry bar. I have a specialty tool designed for helping pop these off, and that's what I'm gonna be using here. Now, might be a little bit easier said than done with how the exhaust sits, but we're gonna be using this to press out that little post. Just like so. And then push on it. Now, but actually, something I should have said before all this is I also have a strap on here. So I ran my cam strap across from coil spring to coil spring, so that way once we do take those rubber isolators off, it's still gonna have something to help support it, because we don't wanna have all that weight just kinda leaning on the pipe itself. It'll end up snapping off your exhaust here. So make sure that you throw a cam strap on before you go ahead and start prying on the isolators. Oops, sorry. The outer side of our frame rail on both the passenger and driver side, there's going to be a little plastic plug that you're going to want to pop out. We're going to be fishing all of our hardware through there. And we'll hang on to that plug because once we're done, we will put it back in. So I'm going to pop those out on both sides. We are going to take our fish wire. I've got one of the bolts here. So we'll have a toothed washer. We'll pop that on. Then we'll have our spacer block. We'll pop that on. But before we actually thread that into our fish wire, we're going to push that through, get it where we want first. So we're going to be using this first hole closest to the end of our vehicle, and then we're going to skip that middle hole that's kind of slotted and switch to this second one after it. And we're going to start the back because we want to have less to be in our way, and I'm going to put the bolt side of our fish wire through first. What we're trying to do is push it all the way over to the hole that's over here. So one of the tricks I like to use is to just put my finger in there, and then when I feel the end of the fish wire, I can kind of help guide it out of the hole. Now, I've already done the other side, and it isn't too easy to get the first one through. I've got a little bit of practice at least now. There we go. And they only give you one, so be careful. Don't end up pulling too hard on it. You'll break it, and then have to go out and buy some more. And one other thing I'll do is I'm not going to totally thread this on, so it'll make it a little bit easier to come off at the end. I'll leave like 2 of the threads. And we'll want to hold on to the end of it, the other end, while we push the block through first. We'll separate our hardware a bit. Once that's in, we can then push our bolt through. And then we're going to pull it all the way to the front, and that's why I said to leave a little bit off, because it'll make it easier to unravel it off. You can hold on to the bolt and just spin the fish wire, or spin the bolt and hold the fish wire, either way. But we're just going to repeat that process once more with that other hole. This one's a lot easier to get through. And then same thing with our hardware. Next step, we're going to be putting the hitch up into position. Once we have it up there, we're going to be throwing on a flat washer, a split lock washer, and then our hex nuts. I'm gonna have these all set up, ready to go, and I'm gonna grab a second set of hands to help lift our hitch into position. All right, now we've got Ethan here as our second set of hands. He's gonna help lift this up into position, up over our exhaust. Now we do wanna be careful. It is easy to accidentally push your bolts back up in. We'll have to get past our fascia here. You'll see that the plastic will wanna fight you just a bit. You getting lined up? Once you get them on, you can then bring your ratchet up with the 18mm socket and just snug them down. Now we can come back with our torque wrench and torque our hardware to spec. Now since we removed that bumper support, we're going to now be putting hardware through our hitch. There's little holes right here where those plastic push pins were originally at, so we're going to have a little bolt, a flat washer, and then on the other side we'll have another flat washer, a lock washer, and then these we're just going to snug down till they're tight, and this will be on both the driver and passenger side. We're using some tools. You're going to want a 11mm socket and wrench. We can pop those caps back into the side of our frame rail. And then we'll want to reinstall our exhaust isolators. We'll do this for both sides. Remember, you got two isolators on each side, plus that one little cap in the side of the frame rail. That's going to do it for our look at and installation of the EcoHitch Trailer Hitch Receiver here on our 2025 Mazda CX-30. My name's Kevin. If you still have some questions about what's going to be the right trailer hitch receiver for your Mazda, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.